Imagine this, you're losing muscle right now. Not because you're lazy, not because you're not eating enough protein, but because your body has quietly shifted into a state of muscle breakdown that happens with age, stress, illness, or even just a week of inactivity. Now, what if I told you there's a natural compound, something your body already makes that can flip that switch in just 10 days? A compound that's been proven in clinical trials to stop muscle loss and even reverse it. Yet almost nobody talks about it. This isn't a fitness fad, this is real science. And today I'm going to show you the truth about the forgotten nutrient that could be the difference between staying strong and slowly fading away. It's something your body already produces from the amino acid leucine, which you get from protein-rich foods like chicken, fish, eggs, and dairy. So why call it forgotten? Because despite decades of research and clinical trials showing remarkable results, HMB has never gotten the attention that more famous supplements like creatine or vitamin D enjoy. It's not a shiny new trend, it's been here all along. Yet for people over 50, or anyone recovering from injury, surgery, or illness, this molecule could be a game changer. The journey of HMB in the human body starts with protein digestion. When you consume leucine, a powerful muscle-building amino acid, your body metabolizes a small portion of it into HMB. Here's the catch, this conversion is inefficient. You'd need to eat massive amounts of leucine-rich foods to get the equivalent of the HMB used in research trials. That's why supplementation, rather than diet alone, becomes important if you want the benefits seen in scientific studies. What does HMB actually do? At its core, it's like a guardian for your muscles. Every day your muscles are in a constant cycle of building up and breaking down, a process called protein turnover. In youth, the building phase outpaces the breakdown, but as we age, or during stress and inactivity, that balance tips the wrong way. Muscle tissue is broken down faster than it can be repaired. That's how you lose strength, mobility, and independence over time. HMB intervenes here, reducing the rate of breakdown, while simultaneously nudging the body to build and repair muscle proteins. But that's not all. HMB also strengthens the actual structure of muscle cells. Think of your muscle cell membrane like the wall of a fortress. With age, inflammation, or illness, those walls become fragile and leaky, making the muscle more vulnerable to damage. HMB helps reinforce those walls so your muscles can withstand more stress and recover faster. This isn't just theory, it's been shown in controlled trials where participants taking HMB retain significantly more lean muscle during periods of enforced inactivity, like bed rest. What's fascinating is that HMB is not only relevant for athletes, but for anyone facing muscle decline, especially the elderly. The gradual muscle loss with aging, known as sarcopenia, is a silent but serious health threat. It reduces balance, increases fall risk, and limits the ability to live independently. And here's where the story gets urgent. Many people only notice muscle loss after it has reached a critical point. By then, rebuilding is much harder. Preventing that loss before it starts is far more effective. And that's where HMB shines. HMB is also incredibly safe when taken at clinically tested doses. In fact, research shows it can be taken for weeks or months without harmful side effects in healthy adults. The standard amount used in studies is around 3 grams per day, divided into 1 to 3 doses. Some research uses a calcium-bound form, others use a free acid form, both of which are effective, with the free acid form being absorbed slightly faster. Why has such a promising compound been overlooked? Part of the reason is that it's not a flashy new discovery. HMB was first studied in the 1990s, mainly in the context of sports nutrition. Over time, it became clear that its benefits extended far beyond athletic performance. But by then, supplement marketing had moved on to newer trends. In addition, it's not as instantly noticeable as something like caffeine. You won't feel it within an hour. HMB works subtly, protecting muscle tissue from the inside out, with results that show up over days and weeks. Now, here's the most exciting part. Recent studies have shown measurable improvements in muscle preservation within just 10 days of supplementation, even without intensive exercise. That's not a free pass to skip movement. Physical activity remains the strongest signal to your body to build muscle, but it means that even during recovery or limited mobility, you can dramatically slow the loss. In the bigger picture, HMB is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful health allies are the ones already in our bodies, just waiting for us to notice them. It's not magic, it's biology at its finest, giving us a chance to stay stronger, longer, with the help of a compound nature already trusts. Picture this: you're healthy, active, and feeling fine. Then an injury, illness, or surgery forces you into bed for a week or two. Most people think it's just a short break, what could happen? But here's the startling truth: within just 10 days of inactivity, your body can lose a shocking amount of muscle mass and strength. This isn't just a theory, it's been measured in controlled human trials. And here's where the story takes an incredible turn. A series of studies have found that supplementing with HMB during these critical days can almost completely prevent that muscle loss. It's like hitting the pause button on one of the most damaging side effects of inactivity. One of the most compelling examples comes from a landmark study involving older adults placed on bed rest for 10 days, a scenario that mimics hospitalization, recovery from illness, or even a long period of reduced mobility. In the control group, those who didn't receive HMB lost significant amounts of lean muscle tissue. But in the HMB group, the muscle loss was dramatically reduced. Some participants showed virtually no loss at all. That's a huge deal, because for older adults, losing muscle is more than an inconvenience. It's often the start of a downward spiral toward weakness, falls, and reduced independence. So how does HMB achieve this in such a short time? It comes down to the body's natural response to inactivity. When you're moving and using your muscles, your body gets constant signals to maintain and build them. But when those signals stop, like when you're stuck in bed, the body interprets it as a sign that the muscle tissue is no longer needed. Almost immediately, it ramps up the process of muscle protein breakdown. HMB intervenes in this process in two key ways. First, it suppresses the enzymes responsible for breaking down muscle proteins, effectively slowing the destruction of muscle fibers. Second, it activates pathways like mTOR, which promote muscle protein synthesis, even without the usual mechanical stimulus of exercise. This combination keeps muscle tissue in a more stable state, buying valuable time until normal activity can resume. The bed rest studies are important because they simulate real-life scenarios. Think about the millions of people each year who experience short-term immobility, whether from surgeries, fractures, severe infections, or other conditions. Every day spent in bed can set them back weeks, even months, in recovery time. For someone already near the threshold of frailty, that muscle loss can mean the difference between going home independently or needing long-term care. What's even more encouraging is that the effect of HMB is not limited to older adults. Studies in younger individuals, athletes, and even clinical populations like cancer or AIDS patients have shown similar protective effects. The magnitude may vary, but the pattern is clear. HMB consistently reduces muscle breakdown during times when the body is under stress and unable to maintain normal activity. It's also worth noting that the benefits are measurable in just 10 days. That's an unusually fast turnaround for a nutritional intervention. Most supplements or dietary changes take weeks to produce visible results. The rapid action of HMB makes it particularly useful for short, high-risk windows, exactly the kind of periods that often get overlooked because they seem temporary. But those temporary gaps in activity can have lasting consequences if muscle loss is allowed to happen unchecked. Now, a word of caution: HMB isn't a substitute for exercise. The best way to maintain and build muscle will always be resistance training and regular activity. But when life temporarily takes movement away from you, whether by choice or circumstance, HMB can act like a safety net. Think of it as an insurance policy for your muscles, keeping them intact until you can get back to using them fully again. The science is clear, the results are repeatable, and the potential benefits are enormous. And yet HMB still isn't part of most people's recovery toolkit. That's why understanding and sharing this information is so important, because muscle is not just about strength or appearance. It's a critical organ of longevity, metabolism, and resilience. Losing it unnecessarily is like giving away one of your body's most valuable assets. So the next time you or someone you care about faces a period of inactivity, don't just think about passing the time, think about protecting your future strength. And know that in just 10 days, the right intervention can make the difference between bouncing back quickly and facing a long uphill battle to rebuild what was lost. When we talk about protecting muscle, most people imagine it's just about lifting weights or eating enough protein. While those are crucial, the real magic happens at a microscopic level, inside each muscle cell, where a complex network of signals decides whether your muscles grow, shrink, or stay the same. HMB is unique because it works on both sides of this equation. It slows muscle breakdown and boosts muscle building at the same time. That's a rare combination. Let's start with the shield part, how HMB reduces muscle breakdown. Your muscles are constantly remodeling, which means old proteins are broken down and replaced with new ones. This is normal and healthy, but in times of inactivity, illness, or aging, your body tips the balance toward breakdown. This happens largely because of an increase in proteolytic enzymes, specialized proteins that dismantle muscle tissue. Think of them like demolition crews tearing down a building. In small amounts, they're necessary. But when they get too active, they start tearing down healthy structures faster than you can rebuild them. HMB intervenes here by inhibiting the ubiquitin proteasome pathway, one of the main systems responsible for breaking down muscle proteins. In simpler terms, it tells the demolition crew to slow down, giving your body more time to protect what it has. This is especially important during stress, injury, or aging, when those enzymes tend to be overactive. But HMB doesn't just defend, it also builds. This is where the mTOR signaling pathway comes in. mTOR is like the master switch for muscle growth. When activated, it sends a signal to your cells to start producing more muscle proteins. Normally, mTOR is switched on by resistance training or amino acids, especially leucine. HMB, being a metabolite of leucine, can directly stimulate mTOR activity even when exercise isn't possible. This means it's one of the few compounds that can promote muscle synthesis during periods of rest or limited movement. Another fascinating aspect is how HMB supports myogenic satellite cells, the muscle stem cells that help repair and regenerate damaged fibers. Think of these as the construction crew ready to patch up any weak spots in the muscle's structure. HMB seems to increase their activity, which speeds up recovery and enhances adaptation when you return to training or daily movement. And then there's the cell membrane stability effect. Muscle cell membranes, known as sarcolemmas, are surprisingly fragile. High-intensity activity, inflammation, or disease can make them leaky, allowing valuable nutrients and ions to escape, and damaging the cell's internal machinery. HMB helps reinforce these membranes by increasing cholesterol content within the cell wall. No, this isn't the same cholesterol you measure in your blood. It's a structural component that gives the membrane strength and flexibility. With stronger cell walls, your muscle fibers can better withstand both the micro tears of exercise and the stress of inactivity. The combined effect of all these mechanisms is powerful. Most compounds only work on one side of the muscle equation, either slowing breakdown, like certain anti-catabolic agents, or promoting growth, like anabolic hormones. HMB does both, and it does so without the hormonal risks or side effects associated with anabolic drugs. It's a natural, biologically familiar molecule that your body already knows how to process. One more subtle but important benefit: HMB helps reduce muscle damage markers, like creatine kinase in the bloodstream after strenuous activity. This suggests it may help athletes recover faster between workouts, while also protecting non-athletes from excessive muscle damage during daily activities or rehabilitation. Now it's important to remember that none of these mechanisms make HMB a magic pill. The best results come when it's combined with good nutrition, adequate protein, and regular movement. But what sets HMB apart is its ability to keep working even when those ideal conditions aren't possible, during injury recovery, hospitalization, or unavoidable downtime. Think of your muscles as a fortress. In normal life, exercise and nutrition are the soldiers defending it. But when the soldiers are gone because you can't train or eat optimally, HMB steps in as both the wall that keeps invaders out and the builders that repair any damage. That dual action is rare, and it's the reason why so many researchers are calling for HMB to be more widely recognized in both sports science and clinical nutrition. At a time when we're learning that muscle is not just about strength, but about metabolic health, immune function, and even longevity, the ability to protect and build muscle from both ends is a gift we can't afford to overlook. And that's exactly what makes HMB such an extraordinary, if often forgotten, ally. When people first hear about HMB, many assume it's just for bodybuilders or elite athletes chasing bigger muscles, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the research tells a very different story. HMB's benefits stretch far beyond the gym, reaching into the lives of seniors fighting age-related muscle loss, patients recovering from illness or surgery, and even everyday people wanting to stay strong and independent as they age. Let's start with older adults, because this is where the science really shines. As we age, we face a gradual but relentless loss of muscle mass and strength, a process known as sarcopenia. It often begins silently in our 40s and accelerates in our 60s and beyond. Many don't notice it until it affects daily life: trouble climbing stairs, getting out of a chair, or carrying groceries. The danger isn't just physical weakness. Sarcopenia increases the risk of falls, fractures, and loss of independence. In multiple clinical trials, HMB supplementation, especially when combined with light resistance exercise, has been shown to slow, stop, and even reverse aspects of sarcopenia. One study found that older adults who took 3 g of HMB daily maintained or increased muscle mass and strength over 12 weeks, even without major changes in diet or training. That's a remarkable finding because it means that even those who can engage in intense exercise still have a way to defend their muscle tissue. Next, let's talk about recovery from illness or injury. For patients who are bedridden, recovering from surgery, or fighting diseases like cancer or chronic infections, muscle loss can be rapid and devastating. In these situations, HMB's ability to protect muscle during periods of inactivity becomes life-changing. Studies have shown that HMB can help preserve lean body mass in patients with cachexia, a severe muscle wasting condition seen in cancer, AIDS, and advanced heart failure. Maintaining muscle in these cases is about more than strength. It's about improving treatment tolerance, speeding recovery, and enhancing quality of life. Then there are the athletes, both elite and recreational. While they may not face the same risks as older adults or clinical patients, athletes constantly push their bodies to the limit, creating muscle micro-damage with every intense training session. Here, HMB helps by reducing post-exercise muscle breakdown, decreasing soreness, and promoting faster recovery. That means they can train harder, more often, and with a lower risk of overtraining injuries. In sports where maintaining muscle during weight cuts is critical, like wrestling, MMA, or bodybuilding, HMB can be a key ally. What about untrained or recreationally active people? Interestingly, some studies show that HMB's effects are even more noticeable in those who are new to exercise. Beginners often experience significant muscle soreness and micro tears after starting a workout program, which can be discouraging. HMB can ease that transition, helping new exercisers adapt faster and stick with their routines. One of HMB's most overlooked strengths is its universality. It's not tied to one age group, gender, or fitness level. It doesn't rely on intense training to work, though it works even better with it. And because it's well tolerated and has a strong safety record, it's accessible to a broad audience. The typical dose, around 3 g per day, is easy to incorporate into a daily routine, whether through capsules, powder, or fortified shakes. Now, let's not forget the metabolic ripple effects of maintaining muscle mass. Muscle isn't just for movement, it's a metabolic powerhouse that helps regulate blood sugar, supports hormonal balance, and even plays a role in immune function. By preserving muscle, HMB indirectly supports better overall health, resilience to stress, and potentially even longevity. In other words, protecting your muscle protects far more than your strength, it protects your health span. Perhaps the most inspiring part of this story is that HMB offers hope in situations where options are limited. An older adult who can't lift heavy weights due to joint pain, a patient in the hospital recovering from surgery, a cancer survivor trying to regain strength, or a weekend warrior who wants to bounce back faster. HMB has been studied in all these contexts and more, with consistent results. In a world where so many supplements are overhyped and under-researched, HMB stands out for its breadth of evidence and its ability to serve people across the spectrum of age and activity. Whether you're chasing a performance goal, recovering from a setback, or simply wanting to stay strong for life, HMB is one of those rare tools that meets you exactly where you are and helps you move forward from there. When people hear about HMB, the first question they often ask is, can't I just get the same effect from protein or amino acids? And it's a fair question. After all, HMB is a metabolite of leucine, one of the branched-chain amino acids, BCAAs, found in protein-rich foods. But here's where the details matter. HMB isn't just another amino acid, it's a specialized signal molecule with unique benefits that go far beyond what protein alone can provide. Let's start with the basics. When you eat protein, your body digests it into amino acids, including leucine. Leucine then serves two primary roles. It's a building block for muscle protein, and it acts as a signal to turn on muscle-building pathways, especially mTOL. But only about 5% of the leucine you consume is converted into HMB. This means that even a leucine-rich diet produces relatively small amounts of HMB naturally. To reach the levels used in clinical studies, around 3 grams per day, you'd have to consume impractically large amounts of leucine, which itself would require extremely high protein intakes. So, while protein and leucine are vital for muscle health, HMB is more like a concentrated version of their most protective effects. It's as if leucine is the raw ore, and HMB is the refined metal, more potent, more targeted, and more efficient in smaller doses. Another comparison people make is with creatine, another widely studied and effective supplement for muscle strength and power. Creatine works by replenishing ATP, the body's short-term energy currency, allowing you to perform more reps or lift heavier weights before fatigue sets in. This makes creatine fantastic for performance, but it doesn't directly slow muscle breakdown. HMB, on the other hand, works on muscle preservation and repair at the cellular level. The two actually complement each other beautifully. Creatine for power output, HMB for protecting and rebuilding the muscle tissue that power relies on. Then there are the BCAAs themselves, often sold as supplements. While BCAAs, leucine, isoleucine, and valine do help with muscle protein synthesis, they still require conversion to HMB for some of their protective effects, and as mentioned earlier, that conversion is limited. HMB supplementation essentially bypasses the bottleneck, delivering the end product directly to where it's needed. Some also ask about omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, which have been shown to help with muscle preservation in certain populations. Omega-3As have anti-inflammatory effects and can improve muscle cell sensitivity to anabolic signals, which makes them beneficial, but they don't significantly block the proteolytic pathways that HMB targets. In other words, omega-3As may help the muscle respond better to growth signals, but HMB actively protects muscle from breakdown, while also triggering growth. It's also worth noting that HMB has a strong track record in clinical research. It's been studied in young athletes, older adults, cancer patients, people with chronic illnesses, and those recovering from surgery. Across these diverse groups, the results are remarkably consistent: reduced muscle loss, improved recovery, and in many cases, increased strength and function. That level of versatility isn't common in the supplement world, where benefits often depend heavily on the user's specific age, diet, and training style. One of the reasons HMB might be called a forgotten nutrient is that it doesn't have the flashy reputation of newer supplement trends. It's been known to science for decades, and while the early marketing around it in the 1990s sometimes overpromised, the deeper research over the years has confirmed its value, especially when used correctly and consistently. In a market obsessed with novelty, proven compounds like HMB can sometimes be overlooked, despite having more solid science than many newer, trendier options. And then there's the safety profile. While some muscle-preserving or muscle-building compounds raise concerns about hormones or long-term health, HMB is a natural metabolite your body already makes in small amounts. Clinical studies have used it safely in doses up to 6 grams per day without adverse effects, making it one of the most approachable options for long-term muscle health. So, when we compare HMB to other nutrients, the takeaway is simple: it's not a replacement for protein, creatine, omega-3As, or a healthy diet. It's a unique ally that fills a gap they can't fully cover. Protein and leucine provide the raw materials, creatine fuels performance, omega-3As improve the cellular environment, but HMB is the shield and the architect, protecting your existing muscle while helping to lay down new fibers. In that sense, HMB isn't competing with other nutrients, it's completing the muscle health puzzle, and that's what makes it stand out, even if it's been hiding in plain sight for far too long. The claim that HMB can reverse muscle loss in just 10 days might sound like marketing hype until you look at the science. What the data actually shows is not a magic trick, but a measurable, biologically explainable shift that can happen surprisingly quickly when the right conditions are in place. Let's start with what reversing muscle loss really means. Muscle tissue is constantly in a state of turnover. Old proteins are broken down and new ones are built. When breakdown outpaces building, you lose muscle. When building outpaces breakdown, you gain muscle. The balance between these two processes can change in hours, not months. That's why, when HMB begins reducing muscle breakdown almost immediately, you can see noticeable effects in less than 2 weeks. In clinical trials, researchers have observed that HMB supplementation reduces muscle protein breakdown markers within just 48 hours of starting use. That's the first step. Once the leak is plugged, your body can start retaining more of the muscle you already have. This is particularly important for people in catabolic states, illness, injury, inactivity, where muscle loss can be rapid. One landmark study with older adults found that after just 10 days of HMB supplementation without major changes in exercise, participants not only stopped losing muscle mass but showed measurable gains in strength. This isn't because HMB magically built pounds of muscle overnight, it's because it halted ongoing losses and allowed the body to recover some of what had been slipping away. Another example comes from bed rest studies. Healthy adults confined to bed for 10 days typically lose a significant amount of lean mass and strength. But when given HMB, those losses were dramatically reduced, sometimes to near zero levels. This is critical because muscle lost in short-term inactivity can take much longer to rebuild, so preventing the loss in the first place is far more efficient than trying to regain it later. Here's why this short time frame matters so much: motivation and compliance. People are far more likely to stick with a new habit when they see results quickly. If you start HMB and within 10 days you feel stronger, recover faster from activity, or see your workouts improving, you're far more likely to keep going. Clinical relevance. In hospital settings, 10 days can mean the difference between walking out on your own 2 feet or needing assistance. Rapid muscle preservation translates directly into faster rehabilitation and independence. Athletic recovery. For athletes recovering from injury or forced rest, 10 days is short enough to integrate into a recovery plan without losing competitive momentum. That being said, it's important to understand that HMB isn't a one-and-done miracle. The 10-day turnaround is the beginning of a longer-term benefit. Continued use, especially alongside resistance training and adequate protein, compounds the effects over weeks and months. Mechanistically, HMB works in 3 key ways that explain this speed. Inhibiting proteolysis, it suppresses the activity of the ubiquitin proteasome pathway, which is responsible for breaking down muscle proteins during stress or inactivity. Stimulating protein synthesis, it activates mTOR signaling, encouraging the building of new muscle proteins. Supporting cell integrity, HMB strengthens cell membranes, reducing damage during physical stress and speeding up repair. When you combine these mechanisms, you don't just slow down loss, you create a favorable environment for muscle rebuilding, even in a short period. And here's the part that's often overlooked: you feel the difference before you see it. Many people report reduced soreness, better energy during activity, and a greater sense of physical stability within the first week. The mirror might take a little longer to confirm it, but your body knows something has shifted. In the bigger picture, this 10-day effect is a reminder that our bodies are incredibly adaptable, sometimes faster than we give them credit for. Muscle loss isn't an inevitable, slow decline, it's a dynamic process that we can interrupt and reverse, starting today. And in a world where so many people think regaining strength will take months or years, knowing you can spark a measurable change in just over a week is incredibly empowering. The truth is, the forgotten mineral we've been talking about isn't just a supplement, it's a signal. A signal to your body that the breakdown stops here, that strength, function, and resilience aren't gone, they're waiting to be reclaimed. And sometimes, reclaiming them starts with something as simple as 3 grams a day and a decision to take action now. Here's the truth: losing muscle is not an inevitable part of aging, it's a choice we make when we do nothing. Your body is adaptable, it can rebuild, recover, and reclaim strength faster than you think, if you give it the right signal. HMB is that signal, backed by decades of research, safe, effective, and capable of sparking change in as little as 10 days. So the question is, 10 days from now, do you want to be weaker, or do you want to be stronger? The clock is already ticking, your future strength starts today.